So I'm gonna tell you about some of the counter scripts for the theater. Oh, and I never finished explaining it. So I had described one scene in this movie where modern Reggie is a part of a union with a construction. That's not the part of but this but in the he works in construction. But at this point in the movie, he already knows like he came over to the East Coast from the West Coast, and he's been learning all along. But he agreed. He was helped by a friend of his financially. He in the movie, and he agreed to help him raise his two kids from two different mothers, and they came over to the East Coast. And in the movie, it's like funny. You know, the way they describe it, he got kicked off the West Coast, and he comes here, the character of Reggie. He's going to complete his union and everything like that. But he doesn't know, and because their father went to jail then, and he doesn't know that his father and everyone is a part of a black pupil, an anti-hyper archetypal criminal enterprise that became a corrupted, half as corrupted, and then it became an international like if there was a villain and it's across the world, and the whole world's trying to needs to get counter it together. But along the way, there's also with countries A through Z, there's a devil involved. And in the movie, we're trying to make everyone believe it, but we don't believe it. But then everyone discovers. But it's only manifest because relative to how the body of nature could be operated from other slash S, and a breaching method sustained all only permitted collusion slash S, changing more and more. Short words proper by and for the sciences. That's why at the beginning of the Old Testament, for example, for just for science, in the beginning of the old Quran too, they have parts right up front that are guides to those books that no one allows spoken. Like it says, only defend right here in the Old Testament, where the names of the people the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. We have to remember that America's found people don't even realize James Madison had things declassified after he was had things declassified that we were supposed to amend to his language, not just because he's the drafter of the Bill of Rights and brought amendments. He also brought explained why and how they had to leave slavery, even entrenched North and South. No one was allowed to speak up about it except for international monitoring conversations. And at the same time, it was the difference of that exploited against all women, so everyone, against all human differences, against all differences, let alone therefore human, for a method that came from before religious messengers were born, demonstrably. Forgiveness slash non forgiveness is to not leave out the breaching method and to use science, use what is true always. Any proper telling of American history has not left out black people's whites of eyes because nature itself shows us there was a breaching method involved. It was entrenched here before America's founders were born. That is not clear because people heard both our campuses and the books. I mean, not just both, multi front. They heard that and more. And people countering them all as collusion slash that's a big array, as fake sides, as a tool to measure and maintain self value collusion slash S that everyone and the names of the people the sciences have, but from off those locations through other hyper additional things juxtaposed. Specifically, you have all subject treatments, even legal ones, all criminal and civil cases, the news at the same time, and the interbranch family members, same ones. Criminally foreign influence, foreign and domestic, and they're here and there shared and directed not to say anything about it. So they use that. In other words, they were the way the breaching method used them since before our founders were born. The differences of people coming from other states and other countries. to the campuses throughout the world connected, throughout the United States, including all ages and natures of campuses, including fire and medical, and the differences between guilt of adults and kids, on off to next to conjunctive to campuses and to that. As private or public. That difference was also recorded exploited as by people involved with the World Trade Center Act too. This breaching method measures and maintains people incapable of sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase. I never read her work yet. Incapable of defending that and affording to be, the sense and sensibilities necessary to to deal with impositions manifest where it's really, it should, if we pay attention, it could be either regular voices or formal voices. In the end, it comes from the courts. But that can be affected right from here online. We can force the quality of fact checking nature. Channel 3 News stole my identity. They're involved with worse than just extortion of me. And everyone's like, oh, it's my job for phone crime methods, wire crime methods, digital crime methods, federal evidences crime methods, predicate acts methods, identity theft, fraud, slanders methods, nature of debate that can't defend, that has all sides of criminal and civil cases. The interbranch at the same time, the news at the same time, names next to body dumping spots, foreign bodies, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists at the same time. Interbranch faked conversations with me and changed the ones that were real. Interbranch as collusion / as with all natures of crime scenes and relative predicate acts methods, bound by the predicate acts method. That I'm not even a lawyer that James Madison described. You guys have him framed for slavery. You have a plural founders slaved. Framed for slavery. They knew you would have them framed. That's why I write. They directed us to understand how and why we had plural founders that had to force everyone to help. And then, for example, to be part of the Declaration of Independence. But everyone, we were supposed to understand how everyone had layers of senses, people sensing if there were an extent of collusion / us against themselves confirmed and against everyone else. Otherwise, that body was sensed and it was adapted to. Ugh. So, a Mark Violet will tell you, I never saw him out. He was influenced by the foreign and domestic intelligence families involved. For example, seek me out. And then I found out about his ties to my neighbor like a year later, whatever, because I remember I didn't. I met him, and I never knew he was connected. He was near a pond, and a Justin Kovinskis. Increasingly, people involved with the intelligence communities, foreign and domestic, are not just criminally foreign influence; they are hyper criminally foreign influence. And so they are self-valuing that being having been by everybody. And it's inherent to, active to, and progressive to the logic of everyone who has not known this about why and how there were plural founders that directed us to understand that they were and what they had to do to force everyone to help to begin the process of getting everyone free, of getting the Constitution unabridged, of getting freedom of speech where it's not only just pretended free speech, and then exceptions used, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions wrought to pretend they're fake, tactical ulterior than nature. It is recorded that they're only capable at the same time of foreign countries our own. They're adults, kids at each age of their factory nature, with location / s. Each identity of sophistication and of non-sophistication. They have collusion / s, and or as roles, needs, natures, and styles sensing for the breaching method, anybody not. That's recorded right where and how. The words of James Madison. why, in other words, why everybody doesn't understand. James Madison, we're directed to refer to our plural founders as him individually, not to pretend that someone drafted the Constitution. In other words, slavery rules, we don't know who had slavery rules, but we know the databases were criminally foreign influenced. And worse, because they were not just sickly, distinctly hurt north and south by those crazy internationally monitored conversations overt criminal enterprises juxtaposed the international companies, all kinds of interests, all juxtaposed to hide the breaching methods too. Not just then. It knew in the future that there would be a trail. Nature would be demonstrating to it. And one thing that's hurting everybody, limiting everybody, is a human factory nature breaching method. The one that designed an extent of the quality aspect in nature of suburbs from America to Russia to Ukraine across the globe. Before America's founders were born, they were designed for a method to use us from abroad, us being a human species body of individual bodies. An individual species body showing also other individual species bodies, made up also of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And all group differences are generated by nature's difference. Of the different by the difference of nature's complete identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that as three equal parts, inseparable from any of its individual parts, as shown to us, as nature's identity shows us itself in as an individual identity project generating the differences like two eyes across species, totally different species bodies. Again, each species body made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies and two sexes across species bodies and two parts of time, past connected to the active and future connected to the active and are grouped. Nature showing this because it has three parts of the rest of its complete nature, where its nature is hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from where and how it is invisible but still discernible, and with the value of the slash between it. This is more probably, first of all, because it is more capable of being used to teach how English was more probably having been taught by the ancients before the sciences became criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and incapable of affording anyone to discern through other motivations, not even realizing, that which we are capable of discerning through correlation slash hypercorrelation by such means. One hypernative way alone redeems. Nature shows us, and our founder showed us, and are showing us. If you guys and will more, but we don't have what James Madison. See, the names of the people, the sciences are using that expertise as styles of logic, natures of logic, and of debate that cannot afford to have this first principle slash S discerned. I mean, valued by anybody, even nature being that first principle. Nature's complete identity relationship to itself, has an special difference by Earth that we could observe, is forced away from here. When we use systems, nature has been, the suburbs were designed to cause nature as tactically, as an identity, the ground's identity of relationship to itself, as what would cause nature to demonstrate negative value nature progressions to acts in natures, and how we are using systems tactically ulterior from its own, let alone while self value rolls with it and that exploited because it's right where and how nobody self values it. But no one fathomed how the breaching method could and did use every location slash S. It had crazy laws against every difference, and then further against every hyper human difference. Had replaced the algorithmic, since before computers, the databases of the Campus Marcias and of the relativity slash hyperrelativity of nature this way. A conjunction to our short words, for example, where we could sense the finest, smallest finite detail left out. For example, we could, exceptions faked or left out and not fathomed, and we could sense delusions in place of science with syntax that we could force proper slash hyperproper means perfect slash hyperperfect. Nature is an only increasing identity of positive as an identity is with relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, where it's making more of its own distinct identity of hyperpositive as value here, or as it is forced from here, not as death, not as the value of the species that humans using systems tactical ulterior from nature's when it is also positive unto itself, not only as criminal insidiousness nature, which it shows us. I'm not even a lawyer. Nature shows us criminal insidiousness natures of peace, criminally foreign influence natures of peace. But only because it's showing us simultaneously hyper criminally foreign influence natures of peace. But a breaching method knew that and maintains that at countries A through Z, at locations, areas, and states at countries A through Z. Nobody is capable of discerning the hyper peace and or nor of affording anyone else to have to value it. At each age of fact should be nature, tied to how we have to attend to this simultaneously. We cannot leave out the children. We cannot leave, as that fake, when they make subject treatments like with sexually themed and writes about what they think of a boy should be in a girl's locker room. Well, in other words, they're making sex forced up with civil rights. If someone was attacking them, then it should be about that. They're making it as the attack. Even the most sacred things, like speaking for black or white. If you do it right, you don't leave out black people's whites of eyes. And you don't leave out, James Madison described how and why there was a breaching method that reassigned what nature communicates. And only permitted collusion /S with internationally monitored conversations of work, criminal enterprise, private ones, international companies. The countries already shared name together. We had to just jump in with nothing. They forced that, only permitted. We're supposed to explain and understand quickly as little kids about how a breaching method only permitted roles against all women, against all natives, against all, and multi-front too, including everything that everyone was only allowed to be against. Also, all help for that was only allowed to be collusion /S. Criminal insidious natures of positive and negative treatments, everything positive or negative, as collusion to keep from discernment the identity of relativity to ourselves, shown to us by nature itself and by James Madison. But we have James Madison. We have their knowledge of good and of evil. For example, to use another phrase from the Old Testament, which comes after the part that says, I never even heard anyone say anything about it. I'm the only one who read it to myself. It said right in the beginning of the Old Testament, it said, only depend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. And that's what parsing babaderos. The babadero sees. The ancient way. is forever's way. Before this, campuses became criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions raw. There are proofs. It came from off them. And then it forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded people to do little things, believe out and change details relative to others and other things. Then they miss it and they defend that. And more, they had to hide that. They were showing later too. More and more, they could not afford to have but to self value with no one self value. Is it more and more they form the departments of the campuses, individual grouped and together their differences. They are syntactically appreciated through and as systems and as natures, tactically ulterior from what could defend that and afford to be appreciated properly. Short words by us as a human species body of individual bodies and paying attention to the answers and to the questions that nature gives us simultaneously. Like, why do we have black pupils, whites of eyes, two eyes? Why are two eyes across species bodies? Why do sharks have black pupils, whites of eyes? Why do they say all rise at courts? Vaccine. See, our country's A through Z, the history. They have it replaced. The breaching method told them how to read history. They are sophistication, but they are not hyper sophistication, so to speak. Multi-front, Native Americans are prevented freedom of speech while they are forced to pretend other. Regarding the ground, too, hyper additionally, in the water and impositions upon us through our might / power, our power / might. Separate and they say, oh, but that's what taxes are for. The bad game. In other words, we're being charged for things. The suburbs were designed by a torture, extortion, slavery method, and to be a landscape theater. While the breaching method employed, many ways more so than our founders, who can't even get their voice through. They directed us to not refer to them as anyone besides James Madison, but to understand why and how they were plural founders. They did not even have the security to let us know their names and why and how they directed us to be referred to only as James Madison, because they knew you guys would replace them, or as you did with the founders, and took their language, leaving out how everyone's language was measured. No one had free speech. We weren't supposed to pretend they did. So value slid and slides. All rise, be tribe. We should make a hyper tribe /S. Many ways they tell best vaccine. And there is one way to fight where everyone wins. Everyone is better. Otherwise, anyone senses and even better is revealed. There's an extent of prayers across the globe that is about this same thing /S. Little kids know the ground has quality aspects in nature that was affected by a torture, extortion, slavery method. See, but what the little kids are shocked on their child abuse to have our founders framed because they were child abused. And nature showed demonstration /S of that. And they needed to hide that and their motivations and for things that nobody wanted collusion /S with. So their motivations are real, but those truths are used for lies by the breaching method. We must not underestimate something that would be as sick as to have laws against all women like that, laws against black pupils, whites of eyes, communication, slavery, even northern colonies, southern colonies, and still, you guys, we even debate for it. And that's because you guys were child abused. To pretend that experts have values they don't. Lawyers at the FBI have collusions also with lawyers of retired Weathersfield Police Chief Cintron. Involved also with Bravo Network. There are proofs with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and others with the Saudi Arabia, involved with Weathersfield Police faked conversations and ties to me as a kid and as an adult. And the networks, they have their Facebook pages involved with federal evidences, crimes, and whiting forensics, state police families, multiple police departments involved with this police chief Cintron, and his roles also with the college, with a holiday message through Bravo Network. Please do what's right, Bravo Network, and CNN, and Fox News, and CBS. Please get me off fake conversations with you guys. And get that. Why is that Robert? Why is that Roger Suzanne still with the news? And get me off fake conversations with you guys about the World Trade Center attack. And I recorded much more that you guys have been hiding, enforcing with the principal upskirt nature. Way worse than that. And with the shopping centers and malls. And the people involved with it don't even realize. Because you guys are abused since you were kids. Please fix the news and have Judge Napolitano, because I can't wait anymore, Judge Napolitano. Since before you left Fox News. Now I don't have a phone either, and they use and already used wire crime action methods and mail crime action methods, and stacking interbranch and private tie to that everything, fake databases information. All ages and natures of investigators used as collusion/S to measure and maintain. People aren't going to go into things for rightful reasons, but they're going to pretend other and leave it out with them when they bring that subject up, and they're putting fake things for them. Increasingly, people from Central Connecticut State University in Britain, Connecticut, and Trinity College have people like a Oliveri family and Mark Violet and Fred Grisette, also confirmed by a Rick Cianfaglione, involved with judges and prosecutors, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, in a whole bunch of different countries, and some child abusers, leaders of kids through time. John Mayano, too, has collusion/us with them. And they brought this up too with their names. They put fake things with the interbranch families in the media too. They're educators too. Recorded capacity demonstrated confirmed that there were courts involved that forced and police forms that wanted them to do things they weren't allowed to do. They just went ahead, they did all kinds of predicate acts methods that are connected to the breaching method that showed them they need to do that. That's also recorded. You guys, please, anyone from the class of 1993 or before it, there's a bunch of little fakes that have been, and after it, a bunch of little fakes been putting fake things in the databases, including with the courts. And they have more then and now with child abusers before I was born, when we were little kids. That I'm going to show you guys what's recorded. And it's a whole bunch of mixed natures of organized crimes, including foreign and domestic at the same time. They use the right to, but we're allowed to do that. They're doing what they're using their time collusions with a whole bunch of other countries, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and the elderly homes, and the programs and the campuses, and they brought it up in their syntax. Whole bunch of people with Covington Street in New Britain, Connecticut, since before I ever lived there. They saw me out years apart. They're increasingly collusions with ones that involved with the child abusers. It's intelligence, families, foreign and domestic. That's why they're ignoring people getting away with it. These are also people using the right to lie. Watch what they've been doing too, with little pictures of the presidents and someone will be speaking, they can't afford it because there are locations, areas, and states they can't afford, uh, uh, basic what's actually recorded to be discerned. They pretend to be experts, leaving out and faking exceptions, and nature has been demonstrating that. The breaching method used that to show them they can't afford to have discerned itself, even though nature itself has been showing us all those rights against women, against native, against black, against white, all at the same time, all those things about all different things, they're all about a human fact treating nature breaching method that James Madison described. Vaccines to teach us things, but makes us shush to hear boxing. Boxing prefers the shush sound. Rest, martial arts, semi or sometimes prefer the shush sound, and wrestling does not prefer the shush sound. The sciences share an identity, and it is functional, being hyper invisible but distinctly from how it is itself, also the invisible but still discernible, and the value of the slash with this. As a third distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible conjunction to any individual body, including the individual part of any living body. See cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, slash S. And us being shown not just like positive and negative coming through it, but identity and its relativity to positive and negative, and its relativity to the unchanging system here, with a special difference as a special difference here, or it is forced away from here, as forced space nature transfer, as Leaf of Hadith. Pantheism was more probably about this science of nature to see through its own ism. We need to have the word slash S for God apart with teaching this and debate with it. Nature wants us to fight the way that reveals only evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, reveals hyper peace, or we sense, even if it's one person, and even better is revealed. The perfect slash hyper perfect is per correlation. That which is not us, that is generating between totally species, two different species, all these different species bodies. Those quality aspects in nature, like two eyes, two sexes, needing oxygen, gas, oxygen and carbon gases mixture, but perfect. Needing. We are shown what makes positive or negative value nature progressions while we are being shown its identity to an extent. Comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. Three ways inseparable from any individual part of itself or any individual group. We are shown three parts of time are grouped, where it is this identity of forever nature that nature is. We are shown inside the nature of debate, slash S, is a quality of collusion, slash S, abridged from nature's way, that modern nations were only permitted fathoming. The breaching method orchestrated the Civil War. The only other thing that orchestrated it was James Madison's plan and the plural founders behind it. Both the North and the South were not permitted to fight against slavery until they were fighting against themselves. Then they had an excuse to the international companies, to the criminal enterprises, the terrorists, the other countries involved. They had slavery, more than 13 colonies, and slavery, northern colonies, southern colonies. Then America's founders were born. Still, the states had it because that was only permitted. Anyone spoke up about it, they were sentenced and hurt. Or they spoke up about it, but apart from this subject as fake, as an identity of criminal and ceaseless natures of positive and or negative. Oh, but we made efforts. But that's all that was permitted, though. Oh, but then they make it between us and leave out the breaching method. You see what I'm saying? We're never where we're supposed to. We have to begin with James Madison's declassified communications. So the branches want the people to repent without their own repentance. Each sentence here: black pupils, whites of eyes, attend, appear, prepare. While some will speak, some whisper creak. And no matter what you heard, good or bad, about the people in history, don't forget the databases were worse than just criminally foreign influence. That's evidence by how they had slavery, northern colony, southern colony, and each of them were possessions of all these crazy criminally foreign influence companies, countries, more than one. That's why everyone goes back, and it's just that's why everyone stays native with white, black, and white, but leaves that out. And the breaching method, nature itself shows us the breaching method, and James Madison did. But then they say, "Oh, our founders had rules with slavery," because the names of the experts on science are using their knowledge of good and evil to get over on people dishonestly. Otherwise, this would have surfaced. I read about it. It's written. It's other ways discernible too. But so they get, oh, I have to pretend that's why I was acting that way. They want to have psychopath natures of calmness and or the rest of the aggression or the rest of it. All exception nature. These emotions described and appreciated through an system's tactical terror from the one that answers what they're about and for. Everything's about the simultaneous / hyper simultaneous. Or it is taught wrong. And or as it is exceptions in exception nature that appear to be that, but they come with demonstration / us of the same thing, which is also manifest because nature is constantly showing us it is each identity of volume, except for how it is not. Even if anything we make up, it is that volume science / hyper volume science. Even if you make up art, it is inseparable from the order of the finite details, distinctly from the value of what is active or grouped, and the value of what is simultaneous. Everything is inside the hyper simultaneous. But a portion of it is equaled out with the simultaneous. Portion of it are gaining value. Because by the way they are gaining each other's value equally. And they're gaining their complete identity equally. And it's a special difference here as our own, or as a force from here, as force-based nature transfer again, these of hadiths. We had to learn of this and have it preserved through cipher. Pantheism. So and then in the script, modern Reggie's like, okay, this is a good idea. I mean, this is a good plan. I'll word it better. He's like, I just realized something. He's like, wait. I just realized this is a good plan because we have a plan on the 4th of July while they're making the reenactment of the American Revolution battle. We say some things that go into the plot of the movie, of the cinema. And there are reactions and a civil war breaks out inside the American Revolution reenactment. And then people come after me and they chase me and they end up following to figure out, following a trail to figure out things. And they end up following a trail where Reggie was going to give us a union speech and they were going to, limit and sabotage his speech and other. But instead, we're going to he's going to set up like he's doing it there, which is not far from where the battle reenactment. And it gets there. We plan to do that in the movie. And planning it with the map and thing. And when they go over there and have Civil War people you wearing the Union. And then they start marching. And then they come to where the speech is going to be near a college campus. And we're going to have, or wherever it is. But also, there were already all these in the plot in the movie. There were already like a whole bunch of what do they call chariots that were sold, and people have been putting them on the back of mopeds, bicycles. And on this day, all these things are going to occur. But the whole movie makes everyone look at and understand the law this way /s. It does not leave out nature. I mean, it does not leave out James Madison, let alone James Madison and nature at the same time. Ever wonder why many people have wondered how anyone could get away with pretending it's debatable? As the suburbs have quality, as the suburbs have quality aspects in nature designed by a torture, extortion, slavery method, let alone New York City, cities across the globe. The suburbs from America to Russia to Ukraine, they look almost exactly the same. And that's how they're solving issues. That's why they have issues. That's why everyone needs food. Everyone needs, you guys can't even afford to have a nature debate honest enough that would have surfaced this about James Madison. It would have surfaced how there are means recorded to demonstrate how names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. The lawyers, the interbranch, the foreign, as ones with the foreign, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists, self-fight with the same sequence ships at the same time, same criminally foreign influence / worse, / tactically delusions raw, factual nature, quality aspects of nature. This is what we must confront because this is what is in place. With James Madison's answer, and nature's correlating with it, is the only correct one. He is the only founder we know the name of. Again, pretending that's debatable is sensing for the breaching method and announcing for it too. Someone's not pretending they don't know that there were unnamed founders. They had to force everyone to be part of the Declaration of Independence. Someone's pretending they couldn't figure it out, but just by how slavery was forced north and south. Why? By what means? What else was forced simultaneously? Why really is it? What really does a practical mind say to describe why and how there is a witch child's place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum? Then and now, that place and places across the country, schools too, multi-front, distinctly but non-distinctly too, replacing what our founders communicated to be communicated there. Clear. Who disbelieves? Who disbelieves act would do great things? Vaccines.